you probably don't think much about the way Eddsworld uses music. Music is woven into the fabric of Eddsworld's identity. That's been true of animation in general for the past century or so, and it's never been any different here. Many of the earliest videos on the channel were essentially just music videos for popular songs. There She Goes, Eddie's Teddy, Send Me On My Way, Stuck in the Middle with You. This was the soundtrack to Eddsworld before voice acting. It's definitely a holdover from the days before websites cracked down on copyright infringement, when internet users felt free to steal music and use it in their own creations. Of course, nowadays every song you hear is specifically written for each episode. These original songs range from genuinely enjoyable to silly to downright stupid. Zombeh Picnic is the most recent music video, and the music in this one was written by JonTron Picking. JonTron is what I'd call internet royalty. He created some of the earliest viral animations, and I think it's fitting that both he and Eddsworld have been relevant for long enough to collaborate on two insanely popular videos more than a decade apart. Ed also animated some sketches for JonTron's channel, but we're talking about music here. Zombies are among the most pervasive and iconic elements of Eddsworld's identity, so a song like this was long overdue. Zombeh Picnic isn't even the first Halloween-specific music video on the channel. In just 78 seconds, Trick or Threat tells the story of the boys surviving one chaotic Halloween night entirely through song. I've got a real soft spot for story songs like this, and just like the best of them, Trick or Threat doesn't need visuals to get the narrative across. The pacing is phenomenally airtight, and I love how the vocal performance mirrors the intensity of the song, how it starts off as a whisper and by the end Todd is basically shouting. Todd Bryanton, by the way, is probably best known for his Asdf movie songs, and composed a lot of the music for Eddsworld Legacy, notably the montage in the end part 1. Montage might be the first thing you think of when you imagine these musical Eddsworld moments, and they're about as pure as storytelling through editing can get. By taking a bunch of disparate clips or even images and putting them in a particular sequence, editors can make them tell a condensed version of a larger story or give you a bunch of information in a shorter space of time. What I love about Eddsworld's montages is that they so often reflect the tone of each episode, be it the chaotic weirdness of Hammer and Fail, the old-timey twangs of Salunatics, or the weirdly epic synths of Surf and Turf Wars. Montages have become an Eddsworld staple for a reason. They capture all the quick-fire silliness of the show, and longer videos would be missing something without them. My favourite Eddsworld montage is probably this one in Movie Makers. The scene is framed as a camera panning around a set, and I'm not sure I've ever seen anything quite like it. The shot goes through walls and even out the house for a couple of clips before going back into the house, and it's a wonderful way to capture all the madness happening on set. The guitar riff also goes way harder than it needs to, which makes this already incredible scene even better. Another favourite of mine doubles as the opening credits to the end part 1, which packs so much meaning and foreshadowing into a few images and a genius song choice that I could legitimately make an entire video about it. Oh yeah, we can't talk about music without touching upon the opening and closing credits. Just like montages, Eddsworld uses the opening credits as an excuse to do interesting things with animation and sum up the whole episode with a unique song. Be it the superhero pastiche of Powerhead, or the pop song in Ruin, or the British children's song about the seaside bookending Surf and Turf Wars, every episode is different. I really like how Hammer and Fail Part 1 uses wooden planks to display the credits, then Part 2 pays homage to that before glitching away to reveal graffiti on brick and metal saw blades. I love it. Of course, Eddsworld does have an honorary standard intro song. It's not played at the start of every episode, but it would absolutely fit right in where the show broadcasts to TV. But did you know, this video has a mistake? This line in Tom's section was supposed to be half the time it's gibberish, the other half's in googly blench. But Ed thought that in googly blench was one word and animated it as such. The more you know. Credit sequences used to be common in YouTube videos, and I think it's because back in the early days of the platform, a lot of content creators didn't want to be YouTubers. They wanted to be filmmakers. They wanted to have their own TV shows and make their own movies. YouTube was just the easiest way for regular people to scratch that creative itch without high budgets or corporate gatekeeping. Even if they didn't necessarily need opening credits, YouTubers included them because they made their videos feel more like movies. They set the tone for every video, they were core to a channel's branding and theming and identity, and of course, they gave credit to everyone who made those videos a reality. Film is a collaborative medium, but it's become depressingly common to hear stories of people not getting the credit they deserve, or seeing names shoved into the corner as streaming services push more content onto you. YouTubers, meanwhile, have moved with the times and cut their intros where they weren't necessary. Platforms like engagement, skipping intros or cutting away early hurts that engagement, so the more successful YouTubers bombard you with information and promises before you even know what video you've clicked on. That's not a bad thing per se, it's just the current paradigm. Of course, now a generation of kids have grown up with YouTube, and aspiring creatives are emulating that style now. Even as TikTok has become the primary way to break into content creation, that style has carried over like it did with TV and early YouTubers. Eddworld has never done that though. Even back when the credits had like 4 to 6 names in total, Ed still made the effort to give everybody the credit they deserved. That's also why the credits in my video descriptions are so extensive. Everything is a remix, and collaborative creativity is something I value deeply. End credits are typically less visually interesting than the opening credits, of course, with some very notable exceptions, but they often use a unique song played over them. Remember Spares, when Christopher Bingham remixed lines from the episode into its own song?
No. Now that's what I call recycling. There.
Or how about Tom's Brocco box at the end of 25 Feet Under the Seat?
Broccoli, broccola, broccolico pad.
Or what about Mirror Mirror, which ends with a reference to the Eddsworld's jingle? This is something they did a lot in the Legacy era especially. The Eddsworld jingle has been around since 2008. Thought up by Ed one day at a bus stop and recorded by Tom, it's become inseparable from the show itself. In writing the music for Eddsworld Legacy, composers like The Living Tombstone often used the jingle as a motif, a musical idea that in this case came to symbolize victory and the end of a journey. There are people online who will happily rant and rave about musical motifs, but I just love that this otherwise meaningless little jingle has been incorporated into so many in-universe moments. There's an adage that I first came across in an old episode of Futurama. When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. That's especially true of score composers. Background music can never be the main focus, but when a scene is scored well, it can be absolutely sensational. Sometimes a score will be as iconic as the film itself, to a point that you couldn't imagine one without the other. But more often than not, you won't even notice the score doing its own thing because it's letting the actions on screen speak for themselves. You probably never think about the intense blaring of Fun Dead, the upbeat chiptune of Space Face, the soaring heights of Power Ed, or the oddly beautiful sounds of Surf and Turf Wars, but those episodes would be nothing without them. By this point you might have noticed that every piece of music I've talked about in this video has been non-diegetic. That is, the music isn't being played in universe and can't be heard by any of the characters, only us. They'll lampshade montages or play a riff on an instrument or two, but you'll rarely see them singing or listening to songs on the radio, for instance. There's certainly never been an Eddsworld musical to speak of. The End Part 2 was going to be a musical episode. The showdown with Tord was going to take place in Part 1, and Part 2 was going to be the three looking for a new house, but that idea was scrapped for a number of reasons. By my count, there is only one diegetic musical number in the entire show's history, but that number is also the greatest sequence on the entire channel. I think it was one of the Beyond animators who called Santa Claus 3 objectively Ed's greatest work, and after all this time, I think I'd be inclined to agree, in part because of that incredible musical ending. Some of my favourite moments in cinema only have that impact because they're set to the perfect piece of music, and for fight scenes and climaxes especially, the right song choice can mean everything. Christmas Demolition gives Eddsworld that great musical ending. It's all played in-universe with a guitar solo that can give you chills and rapping that somehow isn't incredibly cringeworthy. Also, I'm sure Matt has a wonderful singing voice, but I think they were smart to have the characters deliver their lines without trying to stay in tune. The episode is great without the song is great without the episode, and there is nothing else in the show quite like it. And that's all there is to say.